let's take a vacation. This is our vacation. We're sitting by the pool, far away. I live in London, so far away from sort of the Brexit mess that we've created there. Very relaxed, having our cocktails in the sunshine. At some point in the day, I look down at my phone, because I just naturally always do, and I see a notification from my wealth management app that says it's invested in a few companies on my behalf. All of these companies have a very low carbon footprint. It's a preference that I set beforehand. So I feel good about myself, I'm saving the planet, I'm a good person, so I can enjoy the rest of my vacation. So then I look a few minutes later and I see a notification from my grocery app. And it knows that I'm on holiday, and it says, don't worry, we've booked a slot for right when you come back, so you don't have to worry about rushing for buying milk at the airport when you're coming home. Great. Okay, groceries are sorted. So a little bit later in the day, I look down again, and I see a pop-up that says, my favorite band is in town. So let's pretend that we're in Cuba. There's some salsa music going on somewhere in the town. And it says, do you want to attend the concert of your favorite band, yes or no? So I click yes, and the tickets are automatically bought. They're on my phone. All I have to worry about is what I want to wear. So what's interesting about these experiences is actually financial services and payments feature heavily throughout the day, but very much in the background, very effortless and very seamless. And sort of what's making this possible? What's going on behind the scenes to make experiences like this, which were not really even that imaginable even 5 years ago, possible now and on the verge of being pretty mainstream? Several things which you've heard already today. The same themes that are impacting pretty much every industry that we're hearing about. These three forces, regulation, technology, consumer, are sort of constantly within a push and pull of each other, driving change and creating opportunities within the financial services industry. So on the regulatory side, I think you're all familiar. I mean, open banking has been a game changer and has really created new categories of players that couldn't have existed years ago. Interestingly, European regulators are taking some very unique steps that are serving as global precedents. So if you think about the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, something that historically was not associated with innovation, they've created a really interesting sandbox concept for new startups to come and test solutions and products and services in a pre-regulatory environment. A really interesting step towards fostering innovation, not just encouraging, but actually developing it. On the technology side, there are two things that are sort of working against each other. On one hand, you've had a quite old and inflexible technology infrastructure that's dominated financial services for quite some time, really creating a perfect scenario for disruption. And on the other hand, you have the introduction of new technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, things that we can apply to the aging infrastructure to really create some really unique opportunities. And then finally, let's never forget about the consumer. One of my pet peeves is when people only talk about technology and they don't actually talk about who that technology is for. And at the end of the day, usually there's a consumer or a business behind it. And because of the consumer experiences that they're experiencing in other parts of commerce, consumers are starting to demand much more of us. They want human-centered design. They want us to think about them. They want to be on that beach not thinking about anything. So what's happening with Fintech, right? So how is Fintech really changing the game in all of this? So what's interesting is Fintech is as many of you know, is nothing brand new. European Fintech has been developing over the past decade. And you know, if you look at the headlines that dominated news coverage over the past 10 years, you wouldn't necessarily assume that the Fintech revolution is taking place. I remember I moved to London about 10 years ago during the financial crisis, which has a lot of negativity associated with it. There was the Greek debt crisis. There was the Euro crisis. There was X crisis, Y crisis, Z crisis. There's Brexit. There's all sorts of political stuff happening in the background. And at the same time, there's a fintech revolution very steadily developing. And it's not a coincidence, in my opinion. I came to London in 2008 to do an MBA, and my class was the first class that actually started to pursue entrepreneurship as a career in its own right. No more was it sort of the only route to go into banking or consulting. And so talent started to break up. The structure started to break up. Banks didn't have the capital to invest in brand new consumer experiences. And so all of these things sort of work together to enable European fintech to really thrive. So I'll take you through 4 trends that we're seeing in fintech, and then I'll tell you a little bit, of course, because I'm from Visa, about how Visa fits into the picture. So you're familiar with this story, the unbundling of banking. So many fintechs began by finding a niche in something, finding a particular pain point or particular use case that they wanted to solve, meticulously focusing on creating the perfect solution, getting as broad of a customer base as possible, and then expanding from there. So Revolut is a great example. It's a classic example. They saw there was a problem with travel, the kind of fees that were charged by banks when you were traveling overseas, and the user experience not being as transparent as possible. So really going very deep and solving that travel use case. And slowly we started to see in the different pockets of this banking silos a breaking up of the value chain. But what happens next? At some point, the fintechs want to leverage and add further value to their customer base. And so then what we're starting to see more of now is the rebundling of banking. So taking that Revolut example, starting off in the prepaid debit sort of travel space. Yeah, lots of photos, that's good. Then we get into expanding into the asset management side, enabling crypto investment, enabling asset management, robo-advisory. Another example from another side of the banking value chain actually is Square, the MPOS device. You'll be familiar with Square, iZettle. Starting off as a point-of-sale acceptance device, very much extending it into deeper processing gateway data services, now also enabling crypto acceptance. So I won't go through all of these because we don't have tons of time, but slowly these companies are starting to recreate not only the banking and financial services value chain, but even beyond that, extending into other parts of commerce. But in this model, I think one thing that I think is interesting is they don't go it always alone. So we've heard this point about collaboration. So how are they doing this? They're creating marketplaces. They're collaborating to provide value. I think the ultimate example, it's not on the slide, but I know at Visa, it's something that we've watched very carefully over the past few years. WeChat in China, the ultimate super app that enables you to do everything in one place. So now we're starting to see more and more of this, both in traditional banking as well as with fintechs. Collaboration to provide a best-in-class solution to your consumers, regardless of who provides it. So I spent some time on Revolut. Paytm is an interesting example from India. It's a mobile payments company that's really taken India by storm. And you can do anything from this app. You can book your movie tickets. You can communicate with your friends. You can buy insurance products. All of these seamlessly fitting together from hundreds of different providers. It's a very complicated picture, but works very effortlessly for the consumer. But there's one difficulty in this model. Who owns the customer relationship when you have so many different players at the table? Who has that primacy? Whose app is the one that's on the first page of your phone? And that is effectively determined by the user experience. Now, I said at the beginning, I think it's really important to focus on the consumer because they're the ones that are actually driving a lot of the change in the expectations in financial services. And those of us that want to remain on the front page of a consumer's app, when we think about PSD2 and being the financial hub for our consumers, providing the best possible user experience is the only way to succeed. And I've picked out some examples here of principles. When we started our FinTech program a little bit over a year ago at Visa, we actually spent a lot of time in the background working with designers who worked for fintechs, who helped launch fintech apps, to learn what's important for you. What do you think about when you design your consumer experience? Because we didn't have that knowledge. And so what we've come up with is a set of principles. And we've taken examples from primarily outside of financial services because it's all sort of blending now, and we can't necessarily look inward anymore. So I'll go through these because I think it's worth spending some time on these. The first one is reflecting your customer's identity. So personalization, a theme that we've heard earlier today as well. One company that does this very well is Nike. You can get your own set of Nike, do you call them trainers here? Sneakers? I don't know, I'm kind of in two worlds right now. Where you can, everything down to the texture of your shoes, obviously the laces, the colors, you can personalize every single detail. It's uniquely yours. And in the payment space, we see this a lot with card design. We get a lot of requests from fintechs that want to launch really unique card design, and it's really important. You think about, okay, we're all in a digital age now, we're all using our phone, but actually card design is something that still differentiates us as consumers. You pull out a really interesting transparent card, and you're unique. It's something that only belongs to you. You're part of a club. Satisfying higher objectives. Now, often as consumers, we show up for something quite functional, right? I just want to take a taxi ride, I want to get a piece of pizza, I want to get a haircut. But the best user experiences actually go beyond that, and they know what you want inside. They satisfy that deeper need that you have inside. So Instagram is a perfect example of this. Instagram lets me take a picture with my phone. Very functional. But what Instagram really lets me do is show off about my vacation to all of my friends and family. So that's what they know I really want to do, and that's what they enable me to do. Leave nothing to chance. So detail is key. So being a really sharp attention to detail, I think, is pretty standard among product and solution designers. I think it'd be rare to find someone who didn't have a sharp attention to detail. But it's becoming even more important in this model of sort of heavy collaboration across multiple parties. I mean, Apple is sort of a best-in-class example of that. Be effortless. Now, it's something very interesting for V. It's almost a sensitive point for us because we strive to be as effortless as possible in our products and services. And sometimes actually we have more difficulty inside with our own internal processes, our expense processes, our own policies. And so we're really looking at this from a 360 perspective. How can we become more effortless as a company? But the best experiences, like the one that I described on the beach, are ones where you don't have to do anything. Amazon is a great best-in-class example of this. I mean, I think you're familiar with the concept of Amazon Go. You walk into a store, you don't dig through your handbag or your pocket to find your wallet. You just get your food and you walk out, and that's it. You're done. No thinking about anything, no fumbling around with IDs or papers, just in and out. Consider emotions. The emotional aspect of something, of a user experience, is something that's very difficult to get right. It's very hard to find. And in financial services, I don't know of that many examples, actually, which really do this very well. John Lewis is a retailer in the UK. Their experience from when you enter the store, when you use the app, when you use the website, they really do tap into human emotions. They make the experience very personal. They know what you're there for, they know who you are, and they cater to that very, very well. The next example I'm going to talk about uses Klarna, but Klarna is another good example of leveraging human emotions. Often in their advertising and on their app, you'll see pretty strong emotional language. It'll say, love the way you pay, love what you buy, we feel you. Things like that really sort of create a much warmer feeling for a consumer. And I think this could be if it's done properly, it could be a huge point of differentiation. Customer in control is the next one. So never has there been sort of more focus on control than now with the current regulatory climate, particularly with GDPR and the consumer's control of her own data. There's also a lot of scrutiny over sort of large tech companies and their role in the ecosystem. So control is incredibly important. But we're seeing consumers begin to demand control as a feature in its own right. So people want to know that they have control throughout the entire user experience. So Klarna is an example, again, of a company that's done this quite well. They've effectively decoupled the buying decision from the purchase process. So I can walk in and out of a store or shop online on my phone, order what I want, go home, get rid of what I don't want to keep, and then pay however I want to pay. So what used to take place at a specific point of time in a specific place is now happening across my timeline, where I'm firmly in control of the whole process. It's interesting, we had a Taiwanese bank visit us at Visa in our innovation center in London a few weeks ago. And they're trying to launch a neobank there. And they were saying, everyone talks about how they want to have control, but then they share their whole life on social media and everything. And I think the interesting point here is people want to know that they're in control. I might be sharing a lot about myself on social media, but it's my choice. It's not something that a company did on my behalf. And I think that's a key distinction when we think about customer in control. And the more customer trusts you, the more they would be probably willing to share. Be socially engaging. This is such a great way to sort of get a very loyal and sticky customer base. Monzo, a neobank in the UK, has done a great job of really building its business up from a consumer perspective and creating consumer sort of cult following. So much so that there's actually meetups of people that have Monzo cards in the UK. They go spend their evenings, their Friday nights, their Saturday nights, find each other, have drinks, and sort of talk about Monzo, which is great. I'm getting the signal that I have to stop. The final one is about indulging the senses. So think about an app where you have a coffee provider. You want to give a loyalty offering, and as someone's walking down the street to show them a coffee, hearing the sound. That's so much more engaging than sort of seeing just a coffee cup. So there's a lot you can do there. Right, quickly, Visa. Come work with us, we're fun, okay? Whether you're a small fintech just starting up wanting to launch a card program, we've got a lot of resources for you, or a larger customer who wants to work with fintechs and know which partnerships that you could get access to. We're here, we're open, we have a great global reach, and we're ready to work with you. So thank you very much. Thank you.